The president, along with his favorite TV network, were beating the drum on the looming so-called invasion, as they put it.
The programming on the Caravan was propaganda. It was political campaign-motivated propaganda.
The imaginary Central American Migrant Caravan, the one you've been told over and over doesn't exist, and if you don't believe it, you're immoral. Well, it turns out it does exist. It's a physical reality, and in fact, it's here. It's at the U.S. border. A breakaway group from the Caravan has made its way to Tijuana. They didn't walk, as you were told they were doing. They were driven, and now members are climbing over the border fence there. The migrants are able to reach this country thanks to the assistance of organizations whose explicit purpose is getting people into this country, legally or not. Trace Gallagher has more details on what's going on tonight. Trace?
Tucker, right now there are two primary Central American caravans in Mexico making their way north that include anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 people. The first of the major caravans is expected to arrive at the U.S. border sometime late next week. But as you say, some 350 migrants have now arrived at the border in Tijuana. Dozens of them scaled a fence and taunted Border Patrol officers. Others stood at the fence or hung out on the beach. But they want their presence known to both the Border Patrol and the media. Watch this.
Dura, papi. Puro dura, puro catracho.
Yeah, catracho is slang for Honduran. There are reports these migrants broke from the main caravan about 4 or 5 days ago and took buses north. Impossible to tell exactly how many are from the caravan because the Border Patrol tells us Central American migrants sometimes arrive in droves every single day at the U.S. border. We certainly know that many of these migrants are being coached by groups like Pueblos Sin Fronteras or People Without Borders, a Chicago-based immigration advocacy group. In fact, even left-leaning news organizations like the LA Times and Washington Post have reported that members of Pueblos Sin Fronteras are embedded with the caravan. And our sources tell us these types of groups are guiding the migrants. For example, Mexico has offered most of these people both asylum and jobs, and yet they continue heading north. Also, they could move toward the U.S. border in Texas, but instead they go the long way, hundreds of miles out of their way toward Tijuana, and that's because the goal is to get to California, take advantage of the state's sanctuary laws and the benefits that go along with that. Of course, once thousands begin arriving in the next few weeks, sympathetic groups will be at the border to greet them.
I think there are arguments in favor of letting these people in, even illegally. That's a real position.
Sure.
And maybe you can make the case that it's good for America, it's good for our economy, or maybe you think it's bad for America and you want it anyway. I mean, there are all kinds of arguments. But what's not an argument is telling me that I'm a racist for acknowledging the reality of what is happening. And that's the position I'm seeing on television.
You're correct. So here's where we should be starting with this conversation. Facts, which we typically don't, right? So the facts tell us that first-generation immigrants are a net drain on our economy. Second, to then eventually third generation become net contributors. That's the fact, right?
Right.
Secondarily, we know that the folks who are coming across the border, 1,000 to 2,000 people each day, again, having kids then in a year or 2 years down the road, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people all told, that those folks are initially anyway, a burden to our economy. Now, whether or not they contribute something many years down the road, that is an open question. We should be able to have this conversation irrespective of our party affiliation and come to a conclusion where we say, look, we need to have a thoughtful, strong border, prevent some of these folks from coming across, and if we don't, shame on us as a country.
Trump is like a racist Paul Revere, you know, the migrants are coming, the migrants are coming. He keeps calling it an invasion. Yes, an invasion of strollers.
Despite the framing of the caravan as being full of women and children, the reality on the ground is quite different. Approximately 90 to 95% of the migrants were male. The major narrative being pushed by the press has been that the migrants are leaving Honduras because they are escaping extreme violence and that their lives are under constant threat, setting up the strategy that they would be able to enter the U.S. by asking for asylum. So I started by asking them a simple question. Why are you coming to America?
¿Por qué quieres irte a Estados Unidos? Bueno, voy buscando una mejor vida económica.
Venir a trabajar allí a Estados Unidos. A ver si podemos trabajar allá porque en Honduras no hay trabajo.
There's a massive logistical effort underway, akin to moving an army, and is clearly costing someone millions of dollars for the transportation, food, water, medicine, and services that are being provided for the members of the caravan. The Mexican government also seems to be sending police to escort the dozens of buses and trucks that are ferrying the migrants and supplies along the route to the next destination. Ever present among the thousands of migrants are workers of Pueblos Sin Fronteras, clad in black t-shirts and colored vests. Pueblos Sin Fronteras means people without borders. They're the ones that seem to be most involved in organizing and mobilizing this caravan. The organization, as the name implies, is looking to create a world without borders, which seems to be one of the reasons why they organized this caravan in the first place, to flout American sovereignty. While it does seem as the majority of these migrants are friendly and simply trying to make a better life for themselves and their families, there's an undeniable element of the migrants who are violent and dangerous. And many of the migrants know this, and some have experienced it.
En el viaje hemos recibido agresiones verbales, físicas.
It seems to me that there are leftist organizations that are using these migrants as a tool to push a certain political agenda, which includes the weakening of American sovereignty and our border security. And unfortunately, these migrants are going to be caught in the crossfire.
You can look at the projections for what automation is about to do to our economy, eliminating a huge percentage of all low-skilled labor in this country, and say what we need is more low-skilled labor. How can you make that argument?
You can't. The top 10 jobs that we see immigrants take, both legal and illegal, make less than $20 an hour, which, by the way, the Obama administration said jobs earning less than $20 an hour are going to be automated into obsolescence. So the argument that we need an increasing number of poorly qualified, folks who don't speak English, don't have the skill sets that really we need for the coming economy, or frankly the one that's already here, that's a silly argument. It doesn't hold water.
So I always want to believe the best about people and that they have honorable motives, and I think most people do have honorable motives. But if you can't even marshal an economic argument in favor of your immigration policy, I'm left believing maybe it's only about getting more votes for your party.